So, why are we here today? Why do we have about 100 people here? Well, I thought about this for quite a while and I came up with an answer, and it is 2020. That's why we're here. But with that, hey, all of our jobs have changed, some greater than others. But obviously, the main reason we're here is because almost everything is online now. Zoom and Teams have just exploded within this last year. Things are changing daily in these platforms. And MSU IT is simply here to help you navigate through any online meetings or larger scale events that you might be hosting. So that's kind of why we're here. And we have a lot to cover in 2 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and share out my desktop and we will get started here. So I did mention spartanslearn.msu.edu. So that's a website we developed for training content for the university. Most of it is technical. There are some links out to HR and the library. So anyway, all the content that I'm doing today, covering today, is out here on Spartans Learn, and I'll actually go through that with you so you can see it. There's 2 primary sections in today's training. The first section we'll talk about is planning your event. When you're going to have an event, whether big or small, you have to define your audience first. So again, that includes the size of the audience. It could be 2 people, it could be 10,000 people. You also need to look at the scope of your audience. Is it just your team? Is it all of MSU? Is it outside of MSU? For example, I've run a lot of events for student services, and they have parents from all over the globe attending these. So you have to define your audience first. Next, you need to define your participant requirements. So once they're in the event, what do you need them to do? What kind of interaction do you need them to have? Do you need them to be able to speak, chat, just do Q&A, or maybe you don't want any interaction and you just want to present your material and have them view it? Boom, there you go. Also, some other requirements like captions. Do you need live captions? Do you need live captions in multiple languages? And also, do you need registration for the events? So some of these are the things you need to think about. And I'm sure across the university, there's all sorts of meetings and events that are going on. I know just large scale events, smaller ones. You have hosting interviews for people for positions. So there's lots of different things going on. The second section we'll look at are the next steps. So after you frame your event, you know your audience and what you need them to do during the event. We'll get into Zoom and Teams specifics. I'll reference the event reference guides that are out on Spartans Learn. We'll kind of go through that. When you're covering Zoom and Teams, obviously this isn't going to be a full, in-depth, detailed technical training on everything Zoom and everything Teams. We can't do that in 2 hours. But I wanted to give you some of the high points of Zoom and Teams when you're scheduling and hosting these events. So we will go through some things, like I said, as you're scheduling it, there's some things you need to be aware of, and Zoom, there's just a crazy amount of things in there. And then once you actually get into your event and start hosting it, what are some of the things you need to think about? So after we do all that, we'll look at some of the Zoom and Teams training that we've developed and put out on Spartans Learn. So some asynchronous training that you can reference after the fact. And yeah, so obviously you're not, all your questions, your lifelong questions will not be answered in this session, but hope to provide some more information out there for you. So, okay, so that brings us to Spartans Learn. Let me jump over to the website. Before I continue with this, do we have any initial questions? Oh, awesome. Okay, well, let's keep going. So if you haven't been out to Spartans Learn, I tried to organize this by who's going to be viewing the content. So this is MSU Community information. Zoom and Teams is for everyone. So you can click on MSU Community, or I put a nice little shortcut here to get started with your online event. And this is everything. You'll see those two sections here, the planning and next steps that we just talked about. So here you're planning your meeting or event. What do I use? Zoom seems cool. Most everybody uses Zoom. What about Teams? What, should I use Teams? So it can be kind of confusing knowing what to use. So here you can see you're defining your audience. Hey, do I have 2? Do I have 10,000 people? Is it internal? Is it external? What kind of interaction do I need? So these are everything that I just talked about. So with those, I created this little chart here. And we have, within Zoom, you have meetings and webinars. And then within Teams, you have meetings and live events. So what's the difference between those? Primarily meetings, you think of meeting, you're sitting around a table, so you're having a lot of interaction. So Zoom meetings, team meetings are more interaction. Typically you have people speaking, like in today's event. I'm going to have you speak and ask questions, and we can have a little back and forth. Webinars and live events are more for those larger scale events, and you can see the size increases with these. Teams live events, if you haven't used that, right now we can have up to 10,000 people. I was hoping to get 10,000 for this session, but no, ridiculous. I'm glad to get 100. This is fantastic. There are for Zoom, you do have 1,000-seat license that are available for temporary use. So if you have a meeting, you need more than 300, and 300 is a standard license for MSU, and then 500 for webinar. So if you have a use that you have more for that and you do want to use Zoom, you can request that through the IT service desk. They'll let you know if it's available. I think the 3,000-seat license, they only have maybe one that they can float back and forth. So they just add it to your profile within Zoom, and voila, you magically have 3,000 seats available. So anyway, these are the standard numbers here: 300, 500, 300 for Teams meetings, and 10,000 for live events. The scope, with the exception of Teams meetings, like the one that we're in right now, they are internal and external. So you can have people outside of MSU. I know a lot of people collaborate with other universities or government entities, or students as well, or student parents. So, okay. What kind of interaction is available in each of these? So you can see the most robust interaction you get in the meetings. And so you have video, audio, you can chat, you can share, you can do Q&A. You can do Q&A in a Zoom meeting now. You cannot in a Teams meeting. Let's see, in webinars, you can do polls, chat, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. But again, this is just, this little table here is just helping you identify what your needs are and what platform might be best for you, okay? So with captions, they all have automatic live captions now, which is really cool. Zoom, until recently, you had to actually assign someone to caption it or capture that, and but now it's all, through the magic of computers, we can do it automatically, which I'm surprised that this just came out for Zoom this year. But yeah, our phones have been able to do it for how long? But so we'll look a little bit at the live captions. If you are doing a larger scale event, you have multiple languages that you need, and that's a requirement. Your only option is Teams live events. Check this out. Up to 6 languages at the same time it can translate. So you can pick your languages from a big list. So if you need Chinese, Spanish, and Italian, Zimbabwe, you can add all those and it automatically translates it and gives them their captions. So very cool with that. Okay, registration, Zoom, you do have built-in registration, so people can register for your session. Teams like this one, you registered through Eventbrite, right? You could use Qualtrics or some other sort of way to do that. You could even have people email an inbox and you could track it in Notepad. I'm just throwing out different solutions. That's probably not the most effective. Okay, the captions, live captions don't get included in the recording. Right, that's true. I mean, live captions are that. They're live captions, so you have them during the event. After the event, there's a lot of different platforms out there. Microsoft Stream, YouTube. You can upload your video and it does the captions automatically, or you can. I believe after like a Teams, if you do have live captions, I believe you can export the captions that are captured. You would have to convert it to like a VTT file, which is used for captions, and then you could upload that. So I think with downloading that and converting it, you could get the live captions and put those over your video. But okay. So hopefully that answers a couple right now. Okay, and again, any questions that I don't answer during the session here, I want to answer them afterwards. And this video chat will show in your Teams. And let me actually jump over to Teams right now, because in my chat list, here you see it's already in our chat list. So in your recent chats, this is going to show in there, okay? So I can try to answer some of these after the fact. Okay, let's keep moving on here for now. So we talked about registration and then attendance. How do people actually connect to your meeting or webinar? So you can obviously through the computer, mobile devices. You can dial in via phone. I believe it's technically you can technically call in on Teams on a normal phone, but I don't think when I talk to the Teams organization within MSUIT, I don't think they wanted to promote that necessarily right now. I'm not sure some of the reasons behind that. But primarily through Teams, you'll be connecting through computer or a mobile device. Okay. So all this, again, helps you navigate toward exactly what platform you're going to use for your event, okay? So now, so what do we do? So let's say I determine that I'm going to use Zoom. Well, okay, what do I do? Well, we have this handy dandy little Zoom event reference guide. I'll just pull that up. Okay, and this goes through some more details here. We provided the same sort of chart that you just saw on the main page. This talks a little more detail about the licenses. Oh, there are 2 total licenses for 3,000. Meeting is collaborative, presentation style. Okay, so this kind of just goes over what we did with a little more detail. Okay, so what I'd like to do is actually go over some of the global settings, talk about settings within Zoom. So you need to schedule your event. We'll talk about some of the settings. We'll get an event going, and then we'll talk about some of the things you need to do during your event. So with Zoom, and I'm sure there's a variety of what expertise out there with Zoom. I'm going to go to msu.zoom.us and log in here with your MSU Net ID and password. Don't log in with mine, log in with yours. Okay, so this should look familiar if you've done Zoom at all. So what I'm going to do is go down to the settings section here and just highlight some of the main ones that you need to be aware of. This list is very long. So I'm not going to go through every single option here, but talk about, again, some of the highlights. And let me So what I'd like to do is kind of follow through the document that we've provided over here. Okay. So as far as the security section, now actually let me talk about this, these settings here first before we get into them, is that these settings are kind of global settings. So any Zoom meeting or webinar that you create will have these global settings. Now, once you get into that meeting or webinar, you can change some settings within there as well. So just be aware that there are global settings that will apply to any meeting or webinar you make, and then you have the ability to change some things once you get it scheduled. Okay, so security is obviously one of the primary focuses, especially of MSU IT. We want to make sure that we're not getting Zoom bombed and things are very secure. One nice thing is the waiting room. So if you have a group of presenters and you want to talk about your event that's about to happen, you don't want everybody coming in and listening to your, all your housekeeping. You can enable that waiting room. They just get a message that says, hey, your meeting has not started yet. Okay. And I'm not going to get into the weeds on a lot of these settings, like customizing things, but I just want to bring up some of the main things. MSU IT does suggest that you have a passcode for meetings, require a passcode for instant meetings. So like instant meetings, I can just start an instant meeting right now and I'll create a passcode on the fly. Again, this is going to be more secure. Your personal meeting ID, you actually have a personal room within Zoom that maintains the same meeting ID every single time. It doesn't change. So I would definitely have a passcode for those. If you open that up and someone gets your meeting ID, they could come in at any time to your meeting room, and you don't know that they're there. There are some email notifications that I have toggled on. I think they're on by default. So if someone joins your meeting, you would get an email notification that, hey, so-and-so is waiting for you. I'm like, what? I didn't have a meeting. So anyway, just try to especially lock down your personal meeting ID. And I try not even to use that. Okay, webinar passcode. So again, we're talking meetings and webinars. Require a passcode for participants joining by phone. I don't have that on. They can't do a whole lot by phone. And you can always, if someone is being disruptive, you can always boot people out of the meeting. This one you may want to toggle on. And this is embedding the passcode in invite link for one-click join. So they have to have in their invitation, they can just click on it and it brings them right in. They don't have to type in their passcode, but it enters it through the invitation. So that's good. Another one that we suggest is having authentication on. So if you don't have this on, if someone outside the organization gets the passcode, or maybe you don't have a passcode on, they can just come on in and they can be from wherever. So authenticated users, that means they need to authenticate through Zoom. So in our instance, they need to log in with MSU, and here I have, let me edit this here. You can see sign into Zoom with the following domain. So right now, any meeting that I create, only MSU people can log in. Again, we can change these on the fly, or you can add, if you're having someone from University of Michigan, or you have other domains, you can add those. Try not to add this. I know we've had some people that have had to do that, but obviously everybody and their brother around the world has a Gmail, right? For better or for worse. But so I would be careful. We don't suggest adding anything like that. Okay, so you can, or even the state of Michigan or things like that. I know we've had to collaborate across different government entities as well. So, okay, so any questions on the authentication or some of the security things so far? Okay, good enough. We'll keep going. Again, just pointing out some of the highlighted ones. Okay. Okay, so that's kind of the security section here. There are quick links to this. If you are looking for a specific setting, your Control F or Command F on a Mac, you can just search for it in the list and it'll find that. Like, let's say I'm looking for registering information. Oh, there's nothing listed. Okay, bad example. Looking for email notifications. Okay, so you can just do a control find and that brings you to where it is on the list without having to scroll and make yourself dizzy. Okay, so some of the default settings, again, these are global settings. When you create your meeting or webinar, it will have these settings, but you can change it. So right now I don't have it that the post video starts and participants videos start when they log in. So they can toggle those on, but by default, it's not that way. Join by phone and computer, that's good. Allow participants to join before host. I wouldn't suggest that, again, unless you're in a real collaborative environment, you have like a team meeting or something like that. You want people to jump in whenever. So if you're doing more of a presentation, you might want to keep them out until you're ready. Okay. So some of the basic in-meeting settings here. If you want people, based on your participant requirements, if you want them to be able to chat, you have to enable this. You have to enable private chat. You can disable the participants from saving the chat. Again, depending on how you want to lock things down or how tight you want it. Auto saving chats. This is super nice because the chat within your Zoom meeting, it automatically saves to a file on your hard drive and you don't have to worry about it. So again, I would suggest that you stay muted unless you are actually speaking. That helps us all out. So thank you. Okay, so auto saving chats goes right to your hard drive, and we'll look a little bit with that with Zoom. I'll show you where that is. File transfer, that's kind of dangerous unless you really need, like I can see we're in a faculty student environment, you need to send files back and forth, take a look at a document or something like that. So by default, this is off. If you need that functionality and need to be able to send files back and forth through Zoom, you can do that. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about roles within these meetings. So you have the host, you have co-hosts possibly, and this allows co-hosts to add other co-hosts and have the same in-meeting controls as the host. The host has most functionality in there. Co-host has just under the host. Polls, if you're not seeing polls and you want polls in meetings or webinars, make sure this is toggled on. Okay, so if you're like, I don't see the polls button, go into your settings, make sure that it is on. And that actually reminds me of something. You may want to schedule a test meeting with the settings that you think are good in Zoom, because there's so many settings out here. It's so easy to miss like one little thing, which can mess up your entire event. So maybe schedule a test meeting with a small group to see if things are functioning the way you want it to before the live event. So just little tip for you. Okay. Always show meeting control toolbar. That's handy. So when you're sharing out your screen in Zoom, you see the toolbar. Show Zoom windows during screen. Okay. As far as screen sharing, who can share? You can lock this down to the host only, or if you want everybody to share, again, depending on what you want the participants to be able to do. I actually locked down screen sharing. I had my last session in Teams. Now this is Teams, but I had someone all of a sudden share their desktop, and I kept talking, and they're like, I think someone else is sharing. I'm like, oh gosh. So you just miss one thing, and it can mess things up. So you might want to, like in this case, I said, hey, only I can share out my desktop. So that restricts everyone else from sharing out. So you can do that in Zoom and Teams. Okay, who can start sharing when someone else is sharing? Again, depending on your needs there. Okay, whiteboard, meeting reactions, all these are kind of tertiary type settings. Okay, some advanced settings here. If you want the Q&A function in a webinar, and I think every webinar I've done in Zoom has had the Q&A enabled. So that way I haven't had anything that's been purely locked down where we just present one way and that's it. So we do want a little bit of feedback, want them to be able to voice whatever they need to. So Q&A is a good way to do that. Okay, breakout rooms. If you're not seeing the breakout rooms within Zoom, make sure that this is toggled on in your settings. Okay. And then here's the thing you will definitely want to toggle on for that live captioning. So you have to have closed captioning toggled on. And then in addition to that, you have to enable the live transcription service to show that during your meeting or webinar. Okay, so make sure you toggle this on, okay, and this on here, okay. And then here's that, I was talking about saving that captions file. So it saves it to like a text file, but you can convert that to an actual captioning file or a VTT file. So Zoom does have a thing for interpreters. And I don't know if anyone has experience with that. I haven't had any experience with it, but you can request an interpreter that can actually join the meeting and do that for you if that is something you need to do. So if that is a need for you, maybe look into that. I know Zoom on their website has information about that language interpretation. Okay, let's just virtual backgrounds, all that kind of video filters, basically make me look good. Okay, live streaming options. So if you are doing, maybe you're doing a large scale event through Zoom, maybe you only have a 500 participant max on that and the 3,000 seat wasn't available, you can do live streaming through Facebook and YouTube. So that is an option. So if you're looking at doing a larger scale event, you just want people to view it, you can do that. You wouldn't have any, obviously, Q&A functionality, but with that, they would just be able to view it. But just know that that is an option if you need it. Okay. Okay, and here I was mentioning email notifications earlier. I have all these on, so when an attendee joins before me, I get an email that says, hey, Josh has joined your meeting. I'm like, what? What's Josh doing over there? So I got to go straighten him out. Okay, so just some email notifications. The last thing I'll point out here is the scheduling privilege. So I'm sure a lot of you do some scheduling for other people, or maybe vice versa. People are scheduling for you. So this is a section within the global settings here. You want to add that specific person, add their email address here so they can schedule Zoom meetings on your behalf. Otherwise, it's just coming from your Zoom, okay? So just be aware of that. Okay, let me jump over to our document here. I'll talk about some of this as we go into, we're going to go into a Zoom meeting here in just a moment. Okay. Okay, let me go all the way back up to the top. And so this is the meeting tab. The recording tab, if you look at the recording tab, we all know that Zoom can record your meeting or webinar, and historically it's recorded locally and put a file on your computer. But now the new and improved Zoom for MSU has cloud recording. So we can record to the cloud. You don't have to worry about it processing the video after the fact. It just automatically records to the cloud. One cool thing with that is that you can actually record all the different views within Zoom. So it will give you a separate video file for each of these views. So you have the active speaker with the shared screen, you have the gallery view, you have the active speaker with the gallery view. So you have all these separate. I can have up to like 5 different video files. So if you want to get like super fancy after the fact and edit everything in Adobe Premiere, you can get all these video files and then edit them to your heart's content. Separate audio file as well. If you want to do some audio processing after the fact, you can just edit that one audio file and then throw that into your video timeline. It automatically saves chat messages. Very cool. All cloud-based, and you don't have to worry about losing anything. You can restrict some of the information or add like a timestamp. Uncheck display participants' names if you want people to be have anonymity. Record thumbnails when sharing. And there is, probably should do the audio transcript as well. Good thing I'm going through these settings. You can save panelist chat, save poll results. Okay. This is kind of nice, which I don't have checked, but you can do cloud recording sharing. So if you need to share the video with someone else, you can enable that, and then that gives them a link where they can view the video. So there's a lot of things you can do with the video files after your meeting. Like this one that I'm recording through Teams, I'm actually going to embed on the Spartans Learn website. And again, you can do that a number of ways through MediaSpace, Microsoft Stream, YouTube. Just make sure, again, based on your content and what you need locked down, and who your audience is. You don't want something on YouTube that has HIPAA information. So, okay, so that's just quickly. Let me save this here. Quickly, a little bit about video recording. We can now do cloud recording, and I'll show you what that looks like once we get into the Zoom meeting. Okay, so that's all the super exciting information on Zoom settings. I know, fun stuff, right? I mean, I have sleepless nights just because I'm so excited about Zoom settings. All right, let's go ahead, and I don't want to join a meeting. I want to host a meeting. And for now, I'm going to do video off. So I'm going to do a meeting right away. Okay, it will launch my Zoom app. Take it easy. Let's move that down a little bit. Okay. So it recognizes that I'm speaking, and it says, "Oh, you're muted now." I'm sure that wouldn't be the first time someone said, "Hey, you're muted." I tell you what, I hear that quite a bit. Okay, so you can see that this is a Zoom meeting. Okay, it's unmuted. You can change your settings here. You have your video settings. Okay, and here's where your virtual background. And I think it was it Jill? Okay, yeah, this is what I was talking about here. Jill, make sure you don't have this checked. I have a green screen. So if I have a green screen and I try to do like this, it's going to look pretty funky. Okay.
Yep, that's exactly what I look like, the invisible person.
Okay. Yeah, make sure you uncheck that. So, okay. Okay, so once you're in a Zoom meeting, you do have Zoom changed this recently within the last year to have some security settings right there to change. So if you want to lock the meeting after you get the everyone in that you need, you can lock the meeting. That means no one else can join, even if they have the information. You're locked. So that way, yeah, that's just nice and locked down. Okay. You can enable or disable the waiting room here. Okay. And you can even change. So some of these were global settings that we set. We said, yeah, hey, you can share your screen, but we can uncheck these here once we're in the meeting as well. So just because you have the global settings set and it brings you into that meeting with those settings doesn't mean you can't change them. Okay. Your participants panel. Always look for like the more option to have more. I've had people rename other people, or if someone chose some name that they maybe shouldn't have chosen and they come into the meeting, you can rename them. Okay, also look for these, the ellipsis or the 3 dots. That's more options. And that's also, there's more options up here. There's more options down here. So I always get into my meeting ahead of time, make sure that you have all your options set and go through and double check. Again, based on your audience and the participant requirements, what do you want them to do or not be able to do? Okay. Okay. So this was the participants list, and in the chat list, again, we have the ellipsis with more options here. Participants can chat with no one, or just the host, or everyone publicly and individuals. Okay, so you have a lot of different options that you can specify for the chat. Once you, hello. Okay, actually, I think I need someone else in my meeting. You'll see an option here, like right now I'm going to everyone. If Josh were to join my meeting, I could actually specify, send a message just to Josh. Or so look out for who this is going to. I've had people send a message to everyone that was only supposed to go to one person. So be really careful with who you're sending the message to in Zoom. Really important. Okay, so we can just toggle these off.
Kyle, this is Amy Lockwood. If you want to invite me, I can join your meeting, your Zoom meeting,
Oh, okay.
or just give me your number.
Let's see. Let me invite Amy. And are you logged into Zoom? Yeah, there you are.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, and I can see she is logged into Zoom. It's kind of like Teams. You see like an active thing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and invite Amy in. Let me toggle on my chat panel again.
It's connecting me.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of sad to be in a meeting all by yourself. I do it every once in a while just to. Okay. Okay, so now you can see, thanks Amy for joining. So now you can see I have more options for Amy, right? I can actually promote her to host. I've had to do that where I was the host. I actually scheduled the Zoom webinar, but I had to leave. So I promoted someone else to host and they had the full controls over everything. Teams doesn't have that yet. Well, I'll just leave it at that. You can make her a co-host, rename, put back in waiting room, say, sorry, Amy, you're going back in the waiting room, or just remove. Now, based on your settings in those, good afternoon, based on the settings within the Zoom global settings, you can allow or not allow someone to come back in after you boot them out. I think by default, if you remove someone, they can't get back in. But if you just know that there is an option, so. Okay. So, and here, okay, here's what I was talking about. So here I'm messaging to everyone. And then anyone that's in the meeting, their name is going to show in the list here. So I can direct message her. Hi there. Okay. Good enough. So let me toggle that off. I'll toggle that off. Share screen. This is nice. They put it in green. So if you need to share your content during the meeting, you're like, where is the button? Well, it's the one in the middle that's green. So really easy. Okay, when you're sharing your desktop, and this goes for Zoom and Teams, I would probably suggest sharing out your entire desktop. I guess you need to be careful with that. I have done that before during large meetings and my Teams was still open. So like Teams notifications were coming in on the desktop and people were seeing those. So if you are sharing your desktop and you're presenting, you may want to close out any applications that you don't need so things aren't popping up. I closed out of my Outlook for this. Obviously I'm in Teams, but anyway, you just want to be very careful with that. So again, based on your needs. If you know you're only sharing a PowerPoint, boom, you can do your PowerPoint and just have it that way. But if you're going to be switching maybe between different things, different windows or applications, just do the entire desktop. For Zoom, and hopefully I'm not speaking too quickly. I feel like I'm just rattling things off, but we have a lot to cover and I'm trying to watch the time. So with Zoom, you have to check this box to share your computer sound. So if you're sharing a video or something like that, you want to make sure to check share sound and optimize it for video clip. Teams by default now, I think, just shares the audio from your computer automatically, so you don't have to worry about that. But with Zoom, you have to specify. Okay, so I can share out my entire desktop, and then as you're sharing, it says, gives you a notification up here, you're sharing your sound. I'm muted right now, so it gives me some information up here. So I have options, and I'm not going to get into all these, but again, that's why it's suggested that you do kind of a practice session before, so you're comfortable with what you need to do. Okay. Okay. So one other little tip here, you can pause your share. So if you needed to switch applications or something like that, and you didn't want to have the participants see you like fumbling around through applications or whatever, you can just pause your share. It just freezes on the screen that it was on. Then you can jump over to the different application or whatever you needed, and then resume share, and boom, you're just magically there. And it's like Lucky Charms. It's magically delicious. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, at least through Zoom. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about within the Zoom meeting here is this live transcript. And yeah, the reason I really stress this is because I made this error. Even though I'm training this, I forgot it. So even though I enabled it in my global settings, I said, okay, you can have the live transcription, right? Once you get into your meeting or webinar, you have to go to the live transcript button and enable it within your meeting. Okay, so now I have turned on live transcript. Whoops. And so now, boom, boom. It doesn't like the word boom. Oh, okay, there we go. Boom. Okay, that's what I wanted. So you make sure to toggle that on, otherwise people will not be able to toggle that on for themselves. Okay. So, good enough. View a full transcript. This is kind of cool here. So as it is doing the live transcript here, it creates an entire transcript of the meeting. So here we can save this, and I think it saves it automatically because I had that in my settings, but I can go ahead and save the transcript. Let me go ahead and pull open Finder. This would be like, okay, let me turn this off. So it'd be like Windows Explorer, and typically in your documents, you have a Zoom folder, and then in your Zoom folder, you have all your different meetings that you've had with all the video files, if you're recording to the local hard drive. Okay, so here's my closed caption text. Okay, and I think there are some online converters or something like that that'll take this and make it a transcript file. Again, I'm not getting it into the weeds. If you need to know how to do that or need help with that, reach out. I'll definitely help you with that, but just know that you're able to do that. Okay. Okay, so any questions on Zoom meetings?
Hi, I have a question.
You bet.
I have a lot of issues with host and co-host. Sometimes people who I have not made host or co-host are
Okay.
able to join meetings and be host and co-host. Is there a way to avoid this?
So someone just came in as a participant and they were able to be a co-host?
Yes, that has happened a few times. However, I've noticed the people who that does happen to, they have scheduling abilities for the meetings.
Okay, so they were able to schedule for someone else?
Correct.
Okay. And then they were able to come in and they were a co-host.
Yes.
Okay.
Kyle, this might have to do with if they join before the host. Then once the host joins, they have to reassign that.
Right. So, well, if you join, so let's say, Amy, I was going to be the host and you were the co-host and you joined before me, you would be the host and then I would come in as a co-host and then you would need to promote me. I think that's what you were saying, Amy.
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah. But this sounds like, and it was Alyssa, I think.
That's correct.
Okay. So this sounds like someone. Yeah, I would have to test that out. So if someone has scheduling privileges, does it automatically make you a co-host? It may. What you can do, oh, Amy, you left the meeting. Okay. Yeah, what you can do is demote them from being a co-host. Again, that's a little more labor intensive, but you
I can be invited again. Sorry, I thought you were through with me.
No, that's okay. You can just stay in until we're done.
Okay. Throw me back in there and I'll stay in.
Okay. So Alyssa, I'm not sure if that helps or not.
That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that definitely has to do with those scheduling privileges. So Zoom probably automatically gives you more privileges than just being a participant. So.
Cal, there's a question about assigning a co-host, someone outside of MSU.
Ah, yes. Let me look at, thanks, Josh. Let me look at that question. So is there a way to assign? Yes. Okay. So I did have one instance. I had someone outside of MSU. I added their domain to the Zoom meeting. And once they log in, it doesn't automatically make them a co-host. You have to promote them once they get into the meeting. So like I did with Amy. Amy came in, I made her a co-host, and now you can see that she is listed as a co-host. So you can definitely do that, but it has to be done manually after they get into the meeting. Yep.
Okay, it looks like we also have a question about where specifically the host link and the attendee links are located.
Okay. And a question, if you're from Canada, it's a question about where the, I don't know, sorry, I just random things that are just come out of my mouth. So, if I go up here to the meeting information in Zoom, here is the attendee or participant link. Okay, so this is only for participants. Now, for hosts and co-hosts, and this should show in your schedule meeting as well. If I go to the Zoom website, let's see, let me actually schedule a meeting so you can see this. I think this will answer your question. I'm going to schedule a meeting, and oh, okay, I forgot what the question was. So, okay, yes, down here, I think I have to alternative hosts. Okay, so if I add any hosts here, they will get a specific email to them from Zoom. Okay, so any host or co-host has to join with that through that email from Zoom. Okay, so they cannot just come in through the participant URL and say, hey, it recognizes me as a host. No, they have to use that unique email from Zoom to get in. Okay, now what I've done in the past is, okay, let me just go ahead and save this. I will edit this. Let me add Sliven Sky. Okay. Oh, Sliven 7. Think I would know your email by now, Josh. Okay. So I'm going to save an email. So in the Zoom website, you see here's the invite link for participants. Doesn't specify that, but that's for participants. And then any alternative hosts, they should get an email themselves. Am I confusing meetings and webinars though?
No, this is Mary Morose. I've done those where I've had an alternative host and they go in and try to share a screen and they can't because they didn't go through the link that you just talked about in a special email.
Okay. So that is the same. Okay, so it is the same through meetings and webinars that they have to use that. Josh, did you get an email from Zoom? I'll just ask if you did.
Check.
Even if you didn't, you better say yes.
I sure did, yes.
Wait, you really did, or you just
I
say?
really
Okay. Okay, so Josh did in fact, in reality, get an email from Zoom. Yeah, so any hosts or co-hosts need to use that specific link to get in.
And it does give me a option. It gives me all the details you would normally get with the option to start the meeting.
Okay, perfect. Yep. Okay, so does that answer the question there?
I think the other question we had here was about breakout sessions and if we're going to dive deeper into those or if we need to take that offline.
Okay, so I was going to touch on breakout rooms, yes. And I'm going to touch on breakout rooms both in Zoom and Teams. I can't go into full depth, and we're halfway through. I wasn't planning on taking a break just because we have so much stuff to cover. But let me, yes, thank you. Breakout rooms within Zoom. Let's go ahead and just quickly go through what this looks like if you've never seen it. So what I'm going to do is create breakout rooms. You can assign automatically, which is the default option. It'll just, you know, if you have 100 people and you have 5 rooms, boom, it sends them all into the rooms evenly. Or if you want to manually assign, that's fine. If you want specific people working together, even if I do assign automatically, I can't always move people from room to room. Okay. Let participants choose. No, we don't want them to choose. We want to tell them where to go. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and create this room. And you can see my large meeting here of one person is going into one breakout room. Okay, so I can rename the breakout room green. If we had another room, we could maybe name it white. Okay, so that way when you come back into the main session, I would say, okay, green room, as long as people knew what room they were in. So green room, what did you have to say about blah, blah, blah? White room, what did you have to say? Fuchsia room, what did you have to say about? Okay. I can delete rooms. I can, once I'm ready to open all rooms, I can do that. I can add a room. I can recreate the rooms. Okay, I don't like what I just did. I can recreate them. Let me do it manually. I'm going to recreate a room. Now I need to assign people manually to the rooms. Oh, that was easier than I thought. Okay, some other options here with breakout rooms. If you want to lock it down, you don't want them to be able to return to the main session anytime, you can do that. I normally leave that on. People behave themselves for the most part. Automatically move everybody. Once I open all the rooms, boom, it'll automatically send them into those rooms. You can auto close after a certain amount of time. So let's say I do, no, we'll stick with 20 minutes. Now, once I start the rooms, if I needed another 10 minutes, there really isn't an option to extend the time. So if the rooms close after 20 minutes and you need more time, you can just open up the breakout rooms and send them back. But okay, notify me, countdown after closing room, breakout room Okay, so this countdown, after you close the rooms, it'll give them 1 minute of countdown, and then it'll bring them back in. If you want to say, hey, whenever I close the rooms, I just want them right back in, you can uncheck that, okay? Or I can, oh, I was going to make this 1 second, but I guess you have to choose from at least 10, okay. Your breakout room will close in 1 second. Okay. So those are some of the options with breakout rooms. I'm going to go ahead and, okay.
Where did you pull this? Where did you pull the breakout room box from?
Yeah, good question. And so it depends on where your toolbar is. So in this case, let me extend this out. So I clicked on the little 3 dots because my screen was kind of shrunken. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you have the full icon. And that brings us here. Yeah, so all your tools should be down here in the bottom.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. All right, so Amy, I'm going to go ahead and open all rooms, and you're going to be going into a breakout room all by yourself. Okay, so you'll see that breakout rooms are in progress, and it gives me a countdown of how long. Now, I can, as a host or co-hosts, can join breakout rooms. So I'm going to join this breakout room. Amy, amazing. I saw you in the main session. Okay, so you might want to check in on the breakout rooms, touch base with them, see how they're doing. Say, okay, I'm going to go check on the white room. I can leave the room. I can leave the breakout room, leave the meeting, or end the meeting for all. So be really careful what you choose here. Okay, so interacting with the breakout rooms, you can through the broadcast function. I can broadcast a message to all. Hello. Hello, Jerry. Okay. So that is sent to all the breakout rooms. So that's the only way to communicate with them all at the same time. Now, the only other way is to join the room. Then you can either speak verbally or through the chat there within the room. So, yep. Okay, so typically, you know, you have breakout rooms will be closing in 10 minutes. It's good to give them a little bit of time, so so you kind of lose your way when you're in the meeting, lose track of time and all that. So make sure you do give them enough heads up. They're like, oh, 10 minutes left. Okay, we should really get going to the next topic. So anyway, you might want to think about, and that's just kind of a best practice type thing, sending a message enough time ahead so they have time to keep moving. So. Okay. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. If you have more people, you can actually move people from room to room. Or if someone came in late and they weren't assigned to a room, their name would appear at the top, and then I could assign them to a specific room. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close all rooms. And you can see, since I had 60 seconds chosen, it gives them 60 seconds before it forces them back into the main room. They can go back to the main room ahead of time, but after 60 seconds, in this case, based on my settings, they'll automatically be forced back in. So, okay, while we're waiting for this to close, does that kind of answer some of the breakout room functionality questions?
You'd have a question on recording. It is.
Okay.
Does MSU have any permission guidance for recording a webinar for later distribution? Is it different depending on the audience, students versus faculty and staff?
Not that I know of. I don't think there's any difference between the two. So if you're in an MSU event, meeting, webinar, you know, it's pretty much the expectation that you're just behaving as appropriately as an MSU faculty, staff, or student, and that things could be recorded and used afterwards. So I don't think there's any restrictions or differentiations between audiences. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
And are breakout rooms recorded?
Good question. So breakout rooms, like the video recording, is that what we're talking about?
Richard left that question in the chat here.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I can answer that. Is that once you jump into the breakout room, you can record it. I don't think it's done automatically, although any chat functionality that went along within the breakout rooms are saved. Okay. So those save to all the little text files and things like that. So yeah, if you needed those breakout rooms recorded, you would have to have someone do that. Okay. Okay, let me leave the breakout room. Actually, that brings me to one other thing, and oh boy, we got to get going on our time here. One other thing within Zoom meetings is the recording functionality. If you press record, you have the option now to record to the cloud or your computer. So just be aware of which one you're using. If you record to the cloud, it will automatically, like I said, upload your video to MediaSpace. From there, you can do whatever with it, download it, share it, edit it, whatever. Okay, so I've been recording to the cloud just because it's easier, and it automatically sends a video over to my MediaSpace account. So, okay. And so that is, I'm going to close all rooms here. You know what? I think we're done in meetings. Amy, thanks for your help within there. Okay, and then after the fact here, I did have some local settings set. So I get my audio file, my video file, my chat. Okay, and this chat here was only the main session. Now I'm double thinking that the breakout room chat in Teams, the Teams breakout rooms, the breakout rooms chats are automatically saved. I know that, and I think maybe I'm confusing it. So if you want breakout rooms recorded and chats saved, maybe you have to specify someone to do that within each room. Yeah, okay. So before I do need to jump into webinars though, really quickly before we move over to Teams. So I'm going to go ahead and schedule a webinar. Now you can create webinar templates. So for example, we have an entire MSU IT Live webinar that we host maybe quarterly or 3 times a year, Josh, something like that. So I have the settings specifically set, and I can just schedule a webinar with this template. So it pulls in my topic, my description, tells me which template I'm using. Okay, so it has all the settings that I've specified. Okay, automatically record sounds good in theory, but if you join before the meeting, like in this case, we have the practice session enabled. So the practice session enabled means that presenters can get in prior to the start of the event. They can talk about things, share out things, make sure, you know, things are working, audio, video, all that stuff. Now, if I automatically record the webinar, it starts recording the minute I start it. So it would have all that stuff at the beginning. So if I get in 15 minutes ahead of time, it's going to be recording all of our chit chat and, oh, did you hear about the so-and-so or whatever? Hey, look at my cat, you know, got a new haircut. I don't know. I guess cats don't get haircuts, do they? I don't know. I'm more of a dog person, but that's just me. Okay, so be careful of this. If you don't automatically record it, well, you could forget to record it. That's another risk. So you have to think about these things. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to go ahead and start this webinar. I just want you to be able to see the difference between a Zoom meeting and a Zoom webinar. Okay, and it tells me I'm in a practice session. Attendees can't join until I actually start the webinar, and it gives me the option to start it. So I'm not going to do that yet. So wow, it looks amazingly different. It's pretty much the same. The only options we have here that are different, I have polling. So I can create polls either on the fly during the meeting, or you can set them up in the Zoom website prior to the start of the event. So if you know you have 3 polls that you want to do, you can get all that set up ahead of time. You can record to the cloud computer. People now have the option to raise their hand. High five. Here we have the Q&A, and this is a big difference with the webinar. So when I enable Q&A, the attendees can post questions in here. It will come into the open tab. And based on my settings, now here, attendees can only view answered questions. So until someone, a host or panelist, actually answers the question and publishes it live, participants won't be able to see that, okay? And I could dismiss them if it's a duplicate or inappropriate question. I can just dismiss it, and it's like, whatever. It's like it never happened. Okay. Okay, and again, it depends on, that's why I set up those. Via typing, or we will actually answer it live as well during the session. So, okay, so that's a little bit about the Q&A. Enable auto transcription. Again, we want to toggle that on. If that's something you want, don't forget to do that. And here you have the option to live stream to YouTube or Facebook, so that is an option there. I think everything else is pretty much the same. Okay. Any questions on webinars? All right. So I have anybody sleeping? I don't hear any snoring, so that's good. All right. And you guys are doing an amazing job with staying muted, so that's awesome. Okay. We're going to go ahead and end that. So that is Zoom. Let me jump back out to our document here. So we did address some of the captioning and things that you need to make sure you do. Live transcript. We go through creating a webinar and some of the roles for those and kind of what their role is. Okay. So you definitely want to think through who you want involved in your meeting or webinar. So based on how many people you're going to have joining, you may want to have, hey, someone you are on the Q&A, someone else on managing the chat, someone else managing, from a technical side or whatever. So make sure you get these people covering things and covering these roles. Like this would be difficult to do without Josh here helping to kind of cue things up. So you got your presenter and you got your other people supporting to all work together. Okay. Okay, so a lot of details on setting up and creating your webinar. And here we kind of focus on webinar. Meetings are a little more you know, loosey-goosey and informal. Okay, invitations. This best practice, yeah, resend the invitations the day of the event. So we did talk about like Josh being a co-host. He needs an email, or he needs to enter through that email. Well, as you get, if you schedule it like a week ahead of time, you know, how many emails do you get in a week? Then it gets buried down in the list. So I like to resend all those invitations to the hosts and other co-hosts or presenters the day of the event, the morning of, so that way they have it in their list. Oh yeah, I need to come in through that. So worst case scenario, and I've had this before, is that someone who was presenting information came in as just a participant. Well, I just found their name in the list, promoted them to co-host, and it was fine. So okay. And during the webinar, we went through a lot of these things in the actual application. So last thing with Zoom is the post-webinar statistics. You can come out here and there is a reports tab. So you can run some reports as far as people that have attended your meeting or webinar. To get a list of people that have attended your meeting, go to the usage option here. And then like for this one, you can see there are 3 participants. So you could click on that and you get a list of those participants. Okay. And here it is. Okay. It's showing everything when they came in and when they left. So if I want just unique users, well, that gives me 2, myself and Amy. Okay. Okay, Shannon. Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't had any issues downloading reports, and I'm not sure how large your event was. So it looks like it took forever to download it and basically never did. Yeah, I might go in and try again. If you have issues, yeah, definitely let me know. I can export as a comma delimited file if I need to parse through the information after the fact. Okay, so that's kind of the usage. Then how long are the stats available? Well, these should, I think they go back maybe 1 year. So I think, let me go back to like, yeah, it's 1 year. Yep. So if you're not going to get your report within a year, then you're probably not going to need it. Okay, then you have meeting reports. This has to do with registration. And then you get more reports within the webinars because you have more things within there, right? So you can, if you had registration, you get your full attendee report, Q&A report, any polls you had or surveys you had, you can get all those reports here. So, okay. I am going to have to move on to Teams now. Like I said, there is so much to cover here in 2 hours. It's hard to do. So let me look at the Teams guide. Any last minute questions on Zoom before we move on? All right, everything is clear as a bell. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's look at Teams. Again, the same sort of structure here as far as defining your audience and your requirements, and some of the details with Teams meetings and Teams live events. I showed you a few different ways to create a meeting. You can do it within Teams. You can do it within Outlook. You can start an instant meeting and do it that way. I did have the question in the last session. They said, how many meetings can you schedule at the same time? So if I had a meeting from 1:30 to 3:30 and I had another one from 2 to 3, can I do 2 at the same time? Well, yes, you can schedule a lot of meetings. I'm not sure how many at the same time, but you can only be in one Teams meeting at one time. So I could jump from meeting to meeting for multiple meetings that I have scheduled. but I can only be in one at a time. So if anybody had that question, but okay, instant meetings are kind of nice. Let's see I am going to have some restriction here because we are in a Teams meeting and I can't run another Teams meeting while I'm in a Teams meeting. But for example, MSU IT training, anyone in this group, we could do a meet now option. So look for this little drop down. Okay, I can meet or I can meet now or schedule a meeting. Okay, so you can do a meet now and then invite everyone. So if you want to do one on the fly, you could do that. Okay. Again, we look at roles. So you have there are a little more restrictions with Teams than Zoom, because with Zoom you can change roles once you get into the meeting or webinar, right? Here you need to be careful because the organizer, whoever schedules it, is the organizer. So they would have to invite, has full access during the meeting to share. Okay, you can invite other presenters. So they have more things that they can do once they get in there. And then you have the attendees, which have limited access. Okay, so I think we're all pretty much familiar with Teams meetings. I mean, you all made it in here and you're doing okay. So I don't know if there's too much there that we need to cover. Any questions on Teams meetings? Actually, I don't want to gloss over things if you have any real questions about it. I want to cover breakout rooms within Teams meetings before I move on. So here I actually, again, since we are in a Teams meeting, I have some restrictions. So some screenshots I had to put within PowerPoint, but let me go to our meeting here. Let me bring this over. Okay. So here, if I'm going to do breakout rooms within Teams, we have Teams put all their controls on the top. Oh, I see what they did. Zoom puts it on the bottom. Hey, Microsoft, we're going to put it on the top. We're going to be different than Zoom. So we have our participants panel. Okay, so right now all these breakout rooms are closed. Okay. Until I start the rooms, and you'll see it changes to open, or it would. Okay, I have some options here. Remember, look for the ellipsis or the more options. You can recreate rooms if you don't like what it did, or room settings, automatically move them. They can return to the main meeting. These are settings that look familiar to Zoom. And okay, so here it gives me all the rooms. I do have, again, more ellipsis here. I can rename the room. Room Sweetness. All right. There you go. That's what you get for being room 1, Sweetness. You can open just that room, or we can start all rooms. Okay, so we have some options here. I can expand this to see who is assigned to that room. If I needed to move, oh, Lori, no, you actually need to go to room number 2. I can assign you to, no, room number 3. There we go. Okay, so you can move people around. Just kind of look for those, the 3 dots for more options here. And again, practice is your friend. So do some practice sessions. Make sure you're comfortable moving things around, settings, and changing people. Okay, so once I start the rooms, it would move everybody over. Now let me jump over to my PowerPoint, because that gives us the settings after if I would open the rooms. This is what it looks like. So you'll see here, not as many people in this meeting, only 2 others besides me. Okay, so we had 2 people in the meeting. Similar to Zoom, I could join the room. I could rename the room or close that room. Okay, so if I needed to jump back and forth between rooms, I can join those. From the 3 dots after you start the rooms, you see the 3 dots up here. I can make an announcement, and that goes to all the different rooms. Okay, and yeah, That's what an announcement looks like. Okay, you can send that. And then once you're ready to close rooms, you would just, let me jump back here. Okay, obviously just close rooms, and then they're brought back into the main session. So not that big of a deal with breakout rooms and Teams. If you've done it in Zoom, you can do it in Teams. It's just finding where those little settings or things are located. So, all right. Is that okay with breakout rooms? Everybody comfortable with that? Okay. Some other
question about building breakout rooms and Teams.
Okay.
In advance, can you build them in advance of the event like you can in Zoom?
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge right now. I will look into that. If I find differently, I will let you know. Yeah, good question though. Yeah, for more structured, like faculty and students, you want certain people working together. It would be nice to be able to schedule those ahead of time.
And another question is, what would your suggestion be if you want to interact with the folks in the breakout session? Is it Zoom or Teams?
They both have pretty much the same functionality within the breakout rooms. You would have to join the room to actually speak with them. You can simply make an announcement to all the rooms, but to interact with one specific room, Teams and Zoom work just the same. So no difference from that standpoint. On the Spartans Learn website, so if I go to the MSU community, Spartan Teams, okay, I did create a link to get started. So these are all introductory training videos, and I'll show you this again at the end so you know where to go to find more information. But this is content posted by Todd Ring, and he does have Teams Tuesdays. So let me go to, he's got this main Office 365 help and FAQ page. So I'm looking for something for Teams Tuesdays, but okay. So Teams Tuesdays is
I think he publishes it within the channel too.
Yeah, so but you have to actually join the the channel, right? Yeah. So he does have Spartan 365 Power Hour within Teams. But SpongeBob. Gotta love him. Okay. So yes, so that is Teams. Now let me get into live events, Teams live events, so you kind of see what this looks like. Okay, so a live event is like a Zoom webinar, right? It's going to be more of a presentation style, and it could be for up to 10,000 people. And I hear that's going to be going up to possibly 20,000 people soon. So it's a pretty large scale event. So from your Teams calendar, you can, it's not a meeting, it's a live event. So I click on the drop down, and here I have a live event. So I want a new live event. Check this out. Okay, so here we have a little bit of some different terminology. So instead of an organizer for a Teams meeting, you have producers and presenters. Okay, so you can see whoever schedules the live event is the producer of the event. And I will warn you, this is a little more of a production and not just a, hey, we're getting together and people's videos are popping up and we're just kind of chatting type thing. So this is more of a production. But I do want to point out some of the features and when you may want to use it. Again, a large scale event, it's perfect for that, up to 10,000 people. I can lock it down to specific groups within MSU. Be careful with this. I actually did a live event for the MSU IT supervisors. So I chose the supervisors group within Teams here. But, what happened was, well, some people weren't on that list and they still needed to join. So maybe go one level above, or just do org wide. This would get anyone with an MSU login. It's going to be fine. Or if you need to do a public event, so you have people from around the globe or outside of MSU, you can do a public event. No sign in is required. They can just watch right through their web browser or on their iPad even. Okay. How will you produce your live event? Here are the initial settings. Okay, recording available to attendees and producers after. Now, this is actually really cool. Recording available to attendees. So the attendees get a link to join the live event. They click on the one link. It brings them into the event. Let's say the event ends at 4:00 p.m. I come in at 4:01. Oh, I thought it started at 4. It ended at 4. Well, I click on that same link. Guess what? It brings me right into that. It starts the video replay of the live event right away. So there's no, there's no lag with that. It automatically records to the cloud, and that same link gives them the replay of the live event. And you can even keep the Q&A panel open after the fact. So if they're watching the replay, even a week later, they can ask a question. Obviously, you have to have someone to monitor it and answer those questions. But okay, and here's where the captions I was talking about, up to 6 different languages. So let's say we want, Chinese, Dutch. If you ain't Dutch, you ain't much. That's what my wife's grandma always used to say. I want French, German, and Italian. Okay. There you go. You can get the attendee engagement report. You want whatever reports that are available, definitely. Now, the Q&A is not enabled by default. That means in your live event, it would be a simple presentation, no interaction whatsoever. So if you want any interaction with a live event, make sure you check that box. You can come back and change these settings anytime prior to the event, but after you start the event, you can't change this. Okay, now there is, I know I'm just like rattling off a mile a minute here, but all this information I do have out there on Spartans Learn. So this session is really just to give you an introduction of what's out there, what are the possibilities, and what may fit, and say, oh, well, I didn't know I could do that in live events. Maybe I should use that next time. So that's really what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so let me go ahead and schedule that. It gets it on the calendar. Like Zoom, I have the attendee or participant link, and that's only for the participants. Now, I don't have any presenters. Oh, I forgot to add the presenters. Let me edit. I will invite presenters. Okay. Josh is a presenter. I can make him a producer, but okay, I'll just make him a presenter, and I'll go ahead and update that. Okay, so you'll see now we have a team meeting that we're in right now. You'll see that little camera icon. The live events is more of a broadcast, larger scale thing. So you'll see that icon is a little bit different, so you can easily identify on your calendar what's what. Okay, let me double click that, open it back up. Attendee link, how does Josh get in? Does he use the attendee link? Well, here's one thing with Teams live events is that any presenters that you have to be on an actual desktop computer with the full Teams application. So that's really a word of warning. We've had people using Chromebooks before. They can't get in because they can't install the full desktop version. So the web-based version of Teams doesn't work with live events. However, a workaround, if you only had one person that needed to present, they could call into the meeting. And so if I scroll down here, you see the dial-in information. And this is another warning. This is for producers and presenters. So if you give out this number to have attendees join, they're going to come in as a producer or presenter. And that mistake has been made in the past. So we had all these producers and presenters in, and we were talking before, and all these people started joining. And they say, oh, well, I got the phone number. And I'm like, oh, no. So don't give this phone number out to people who are just attending. This is only for producers and presenters. So worst case scenario, your presenter can just call in on the phone. It's 1, 2, 4, 8, 5, 3. Does anybody still have a rotary phone? I have a red one. That's like a bat phone. I just pull it out and run my finger through the dial. It brings me back. It's so good. Okay. In a world of Teams and video chat, just need that little touch of analog. Okay, so if I actually join this live event, what it's going to do is boot me out of the Teams meeting that I'm in right now. So I can't do that. So lucky for you, I made it in PowerPoint. So there we go. Okay, so once I start the live event, this is what it looks like for the producer. Now, a presenter is going to get a typical Teams meeting or Zoom meeting type look where you see the other presenters and their faces. So the producer is the only one that gets this kind of production look, okay? And let's see, look at my time. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on this, just by way of introduction to live events. So we're in a pre-live mode, okay? Content from below, and there's a couple different views with Teams. So I could have like a PowerPoint in this window and a video feed from this window, and that's it. Darn, Teams keeps, okay. So what happens when I shared out my desktop. Now I see that that's available to choose from in the bottom, okay? So to add that content, I would have to click on add content. Then I would have to click on this here, my desktop. And then, okay, it shows. Now, right now, the live event hasn't started. So this is kind of the queue and what the producer is queuing up for the attendees to see. So I'm going to go ahead and click send live. Okay, so this is what the attendees will see. Once I'm ready to start the event, I click on start, and you'll see this now goes red. You show that this is active, and this is what's actually being shown. Okay, so what are, what's Teams live events good for? Again, large scale, multiple languages. It is more of a production. As you have several different presenters, you can, look at my Mr. Rogers sweater. This thing is so warm. I love it. But especially when you have a basement office. So if you have several different presenters here, their video feeds are going to show at the bottom, and I would have to queue their video up, then send it live and have it go over on the right side for everybody. So if you're having like quick back and forth with presenters, it is kind of difficult to keep up with the video feeds. But if you have like a real structured thing, you're like, this person is going to speak for the first 10 minutes, then this person, then this person, then, it's easy to just select their video. Okay, send them live. They do their spiel, queue up the next person, send them live. They do their spiel. So again, some restrictions with Teams. Okay. Now, a couple warnings with Teams live events. Once you start the live event, the ship is out in the ocean. I mean, you are not turning back. You can't change any settings. Any of those settings, presenters and things like that we had to add, I can't add them after the fact. You can give out, again, the phone number. They could join in at any time, but yeah, so pretty much once you start it, that's it. You're not changing anything. Similarly, once you end the event, I mean, that's it. You can't restart a Teams live event. So even one that I've made in my calendar, if I had one yesterday and started it and ended it, I can't restart that live event. It's like, hey, sorry. You can use that attendee link to rewatch the event, however. So, okay, so once I click on end here, it'll say, okay, you want to end the live event now? You can't restart it. Okay. So yeah, we would go ahead and do that. Okay. So end of slideshow. Any questions on Teams live events? And I didn't want to spend a lot of time on that, just because I know most of you aren't doing live events. You're simply doing meetings or Zoom. So I'm looking for questions. I'm gonna open it up now. If we have any questions.
Just wanted to clarify about the Power Hour. It looks like Amy and a couple of people added the links to the Power Hour, the Spartan 360 Power Hour.
Yeah.
I believe that replaced Teams Tuesdays, but
okay.
it does cover Teams, I believe, in these sessions, and is available. There's chats and subgroups in there to chat about, and Q&As for stuff like Teams.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's good. Thanks for that clarification. Okay, yeah, that's why. Do you want to become a member of the Power Ho team? Oh, our team. Okay, yes. So you could submit that, and that would get you on the list, and Todd would add you to that Teams group. Yep. Okay, Richard, did you have your hand up? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could maybe briefly talk a little bit about both in Zoom and Teams, in contrast, the speaker view versus gallery view setting and how that interacts with the person that's recording the event locally on their, as opposed to the cloud.
Okay, so
I learned this the hard way once when I left a meeting in gallery view, not realizing. So we had a main speaker, but instead of the main speaker, we were seeing everybody. You know.
Okay. Okay.
In the recording.
Okay. Let me go ahead and start this Zoom meeting, for example. Okay. Now at the bottom of this page here, and I'll show you how to get to this again, just by way of reminder. But we do have a best practices reference. You know, hopefully things that we're all doing. Just a strong internet connection. I always stay plugged into my router with an Ethernet cable. I never rely on Wi-Fi. It could depend on you. your setup. I mean, maybe Ethernet cable is not an option for you, and that's fine. Just make sure you have a strong internet connection as possible. Yeah, it talks about audio, using a headset or just making sure that you have things checked out. Video, they have a lot of cheap lighting now that you can get for proper front lighting. Yeah, try to avoid being just a dark cavern of a person. But okay, talks about behaviors and then some specific requirements for Teams and Zoom. Talks a little bit about moderating meetings and some things to think about as you're moderating. And you get a feel for that here. So I have someone helping out, manage things. And okay, so just all things that we wanted to put out here for you to reference and things to think about. So let me go back to spartanslearn.msu.edu. And again, this is going to be for the MSU community. That's you all. And this is our training that we're going over right here, the online meetings and events. We have a lot of other things out here, Spartan 365, Teams, Spartan Drive. I created an entire Zoom training page. Let me go back to this one though. So in here, I tried to do a step-by-step. So after you do the reference guides, here are the asynchronous. Here is the asynchronous training that's available for Zoom. Okay, how to download Zoom, getting started with Zoom, what's a meeting versus a webinar, settings. So I go over a lot of the settings that we went over in here. How to simply join, how to schedule and start a meeting, host, schedule a webinar, host and manage a webinar, how to present in a Zoom meeting, security, and then looking at reports and what kind of reports you can view after that. So all these videos are available out here. So I would check those out. So that's for Zoom. And then I have one for Teams as well. And by the way, Teams is totally rad. And so you can check out this video. Yes, that is the red rotary phone I was talking about. There it is. So how to download Teams. Here's the getting started, those introductory training videos on that Spartan 365 help and FAQ site. If you simply want to record a video within Teams, maybe you just want to record a video and post it to present some information, how to do that. I did embed this video from Microsoft on breakout rooms, so they go into a little more detail on that. So since that's a newer feature, I wanted to put that out here right away so you have that. And then Teams live events, if that's something you're going to be doing, I created a full course out here on live events. So all the detailed functions from scheduling, inviting, producing, presenting, attending, and then managing all the recordings and everything after the fact. So all this content is out there and available for you. And of course, if you have any questions in the meantime or after you watch some of the videos out here, I'm always available. And you can reach out to me as well. So, okay, so spartanslearn.msu.edu, and we have 2 minutes left. I'll open it up for any last minute questions.
I think Elizabeth had raised her hand.
Okay.
I have a question. If you have to choose for a poster session, do you think Teams will be better to have a poster session in a virtual event or Zoom?
Okay, what type of session? I'm sorry.
Poster session.
Okay,
exactly, so poster session like in a conference.
Okay, so they're just presenting their information.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and it would kind of depend on what and I'll jump back here and reference our chart here, what the scope of it is. If this is just for internal within MSU, depending on how large it is and how many people you're going to be presenting. I mean, you could very easily do this if you're going to have 5 people presenting and maybe 20 people attending. You could very easily do it within Teams if they're all within MSU, or do it in a Zoom meeting. If you have people, I think outside of MSU, I would probably do a Zoom meeting. Again, if it's not too large, a Zoom meeting would be just fine for that. Teams live events doesn't sound like it's going to be maybe the appropriate avenue for this. So again, depending on the size and the scope.
Well, I was asking for 600 people event and assigning, let's say, 20 people at a time to be in a meeting room where 20 posters can be presented at the same time.
Oh, okay. So you have 600 people and you want to breakout rooms to send people
Yes.
other rooms? Okay. Yeah. Then you're probably going to need a Zoom, either a Zoom meeting or a Zoom webinar, but you're going to have to request a larger license through the MSU IT Service Desk.
Yes, I will. And the last question was, is there any way automatically from one Zoom room to another?
And I think you kind of cut out a little bit, but you want to automatically jump from one Zoom room to another?
Rotate.
Rotate. I gotcha. No way to automatically rotate. No. So whoever's managing that, the host for that, would have to assign people to different rooms. Or if you as a host needed to go between the different rooms, you'd just have to join the different breakout rooms, come back to the main room and join the other rooms manually, but no way to automatically do it.
Yeah, this will be a challenge with 600 people to remember in which room they already have visited. And assigning them also, it will be a chore.
Right. Oh, I gotcha. So so certain people are presenting information in certain rooms and you want the people to come in and out of those rooms and view the information.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Well, you can change the settings too, and I know we're a couple minutes past, but you can change the settings so people can come back to the main room and go into other rooms. So you would just have to have people freely come in and out of the rooms and keep track of what rooms. So tell them, say, if you have these 10 rooms, say make sure you visit each room and maybe have a little checklist that they can check off they visited the room. So just offhand.
So the participants should be allowed to choose their breakout rooms in the Zoom settings.
Yes, you can do that.
Okay.
So for this instance, you'd have to use a Zoom meeting because that's the only one with breakout rooms. Yep. Okay. And if you want to reach out, if you have further questions about that, I'm always available after the fact. So, okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet. You bet. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up then since we are a few minutes past. And thank you so much for joining. Hopefully it was helpful. I just want to help get people going down the right path here for their meetings and events. So definitely come out to Spartans Learn. If you have questions, you can reach out to me. You can contact the IT Service Desk here at the footer, 432-6200. So there's lots of help for you, and trust you all have a great rest of the day.